Hi, my name's John. I'm with The Real Rejects, and thank you guys for taking the time to chat with me. And I mean, the first thing I wanted to say is thank you, just because I remember when we first put on the initial episode of Arcane Season 1, I hadn't seen anything quite like it, and as a lover of animation, I was pretty blown away and continued to be, so just thanks for all the hard work and effort you guys put into this, because it clearly must have taken a ton. And so I guess my first question, we live in a time that obviously is rife with a lot of great animation, but it has for me been a while since I've been able to forget about the computer and feel like I'm watching something that is living and breathing and an alive piece of art. And so my question to each of you kind of is, how do you view that process, and what was the key to orchestrating that aesthetic? And did you need to innovate anything in particular to bring season 2 especially to life?
We didn't need to innovate because that was part of Fortiche DNA to do picture that way. We had to improve the way we are doing pictures because the scale of the project was bigger than anything else.
Yeah, I think the scale was the
Yeah,
challenge. Like, how can you have that like attention to detail and like the small boutique studio approach, but at a much larger scale that was
yeah,
a daunting
yeah.
task.
But the goal of doing a timeless picture, is something Fortiche has always keen of on doing, and it's a studio founded by 3 artists, so everything is driven by this artistic vision, and the crafts of making picture, the way we paint every single background or texture, gives this timeless look to the show.
I mean, truly, it does feel, yeah, like living oil paintings, which, is, yeah, it has, with the steampunk, that it really does feel like you're glimpsing something out of time that's ancient and future at the same time, which is just neat in the landscape. And for each of you personally, in your respective departments, from producing, animating, writing, what was the biggest challenge perhaps in this season, and what was the biggest triumph? And is there any moment, image, line of dialogue that most resonates with you now?
For season 2?
Season 2.
I mean, you know, wrapping up any story where it's like that'll be the end of it is daunting as shit. But also like not just for our own sake, but like just generally speaking, the landscape of TV shows who stuck the landing is it's not vast. And so that is it's just it is intimidating, you know? And so you kind of drive yourself nuts over that until you kind of that you just have to do it. You just have to kind of put down your your thoughts, and you have to commit to very final actions of characters. And that definitely was like the most challenging and scary part, uh and I think, I mean, I'm really happy. The last episode in particular was an absolute behemoth. I mean, I think the first animatic, the first kind of storyboards clocked in at like over an hour. Um, because it's just like you need to do everything justice, and then like there's an economy around that that's very difficult. So I'm very, very proud of what the team has done there. Working the editors, the storyboarders, and yeah, definitely like that watching that come together was definitely an amazing feeling, because again, it takes for years. You're kind of anticipating that moment, and then it's finally there. So that's great.
Absolutely, and then you probed it on a granular level, and you've been there through every step of the beauty and frustration of it all. Are there any babies you had to kill that you particularly,
Many.
you know, hung for?
Our graveyard looks like Arlington.
Sure. I
That's
believe
our
that.
joke.
Sure,
I think what's nice about writing is when you get to the end, you finally get to just say things that you had been putting in subtext the whole time. So you get to finally have characters say what you thought their story was from the beginning. So a lot of those like last lines in the final moments were always like, is this too on the nose? Should we just say break the cycle? That was the story from the beginning. Should we just say it? And the answer we found was yes. Like, it is cathartic to just finally have characters speak the story you've been trying to tell. So I thought that was really nice.
Absolutely, you earn the theme,
Yeah.
rather than just giving it towards
That way, exactly.
Oh. Then from there, I'm curious, what's the future of Runeterra in this space, and how much do you think about the interplay between the game and the show? Do you want them to feed each other? I imagine to some degree, but how much are you focused on that?
Arcane started with the inspiration from the characters, from the game characters, and so I think it's similar in that sense, where you start from there, and we look to our team of writers, and artists to really just ask this question, like, what do you really want to see? Like, where do you have this this burning desire to be like, I want to see this story or this character on screen, and try to start with something as simple as that. You can always kind of get lost in like strategy and whatnot, but then you just don't find the right person. So what's like a strong vision? Who's someone who could just make something awesome because they have the right North Star, the right dream? That's the most critical thing. So RP has a lot of characters, over 160 champions at this point. So there's a lot of things we can do. Which ones should we do? It comes really down to just like, we have our trusted team. What do these individuals want to do? And then the interaction, I think it just makes things better when you feel like you watch a show and the story about a character that you then right after can kind of log in and feel like you're continuing their story. That's the dream. It's very hard to do, because they have very different needs, the different kind of expressions of those characters. But I think that was always the dream, is that we can kind of have the coexistence, the symbiosis between, a game and the characters where we tell the story on the big screen.
Seems like it naturally really allows well for that. And,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like one is treading on the other's feet or anything.
And yet, like, some have tried, and it's just hard, It's just hard. They're developed very differently. So that's also something we need to keep our eye on. Like, how do we do well in that regard as a studio?
Do each of you have a favorite episode that you feel like speaks to your unique contributions at any point?
Are we gonna give the same answer?
Yes, yeah. Bart and I worked on 207 together, so we so much of that was like us back and forth. So I don't know. I feel like that's a big part of our hearts.
That's a beautiful episode.
So
Thank you.
That might be my favorite of the season.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's 207 is just a very, very, very special episode. So kind of that one's hard to argue with, on the level of just the beauty of moments, the music, there's so much to love. I do also really probably close second to me is 205.
yeah,
Kind of like the Vi Jinx dynamic and the ups and downs. It's just something that it's just a very charged relationship that we've built over so many years, and that was very, very cool to see, that kind of mini reunion. So
I would always cry even during the animatic. Every time at the end, animatic, just sobbing through it, and then I have to give notes.
Cheers, thank you.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed, just out in culture, obviously, the show's been hugely popular, and at WonderCon this year, I noticed a lot less Jokers and Harleys, and a lot more Vi's, Jinxes, and Echoes. Have you seen out in the wild like a particularly elaborate or beautiful cosplay that you loved? And if you had to do one yourself, who would you choose? Who would you be?
I've seen a minion, one of Victor's minions, that was dope. I mean, obviously, anyone who does Victor, God Victor, is with the lights is.
I haven't seen one yet.
Really?
No, I haven't seen like a full blown kind of Victor yet. I'm curious because that must be really difficult. I haven't seen a Warwick yet.
Oh!
I'm waiting.
Someone's gonna do it.
But they've been amazing. I mean, Vi, Jinxes. I mean, yeah, yesterday we saw a bunch of Echo. Yeah, it's fun to see.
There's only one answer for me of who I could be, though. Vi.
But it's also the props they're making sometimes.
Yeah.
The props they're making are like crazy, because we also spend like months and months like elaborating them, making them like super complex and super fancy. And we met the other guy the other day, a guy who did like this eco cosplay, and he also built the Z drive with all the the zootrop mechanism with the monkeys and everything. It's like,
And it
that's
lit up.
brilliant.
It lit up. It was
Yeah.
cool.
That's
That was
incredible.
Yes.
awesome, yeah.
Well, and this speaks to the kind of continuum of artistry, and I think that's just not everything produces that. I think that's a really lovely thing. And I guess I would be remiss if I did not ask. Someone would find me and penalize me. Is there anything ahead? It seems like the show clearly at least leaves a couple of threads that we could follow directly, but also there's got to be, as you said, you've got hundreds of champions and storylines to follow. Is there a next season of something or other related in the work?
I think it's fair to say that there are some characters and storylines that we'll probably want to revisit, continue in the future. I think again, right now it's really investing in the team and seeing like where these ideas that bubble to the surface, and that can be something that comes out of Arcane, that can be new stories. And we're just really investing in that process right now. So I think, eventually we'll want to continue this. Yeah.
Beautiful. I guess I've got a moment longer. This never almost happens. What's the biggest sort of outside inspiration that you brought in that no one would have guessed, or just that was particularly important to you in crafting this story yourselves?
Or was there any at all?
We all brought a part of ourselves to this a lot. I think a lot of us are siblings and brought our own history of baggage. Love and hate, okay? Those moments coexist.
Yeah.
To the show. So in their personal journeys and things, obviously I brought a lot of like what I wanted queer representation to be because of what I felt like I didn't see when I was a kid that would have changed my life personally. If I had seen Arcane when I was 16, I would have known myself so much better.
Sure.
So I'm like very happy that exists for that reason. So
Beautiful.
Building up the team also and giving them the opportunity to work on this once in a lifetime opportunity also is something I'm pretty happy.
yeah.
Well, that's got to come up with a lot of like just original inspiration, as it must feel like you're part of something unique, amid a pretty populated, again, content landscape in general. Yeah. Well, beautiful. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I wish I could spend an hour with you, but I know there's a lot to do. So thank you so much for the artistry, and the joy.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for coming out.